Hi, my name is Doug Windiker. I'm a QA product specialist here at Atlas Copco, and today we're going to go into QA Supervisor software and look at joint inspections. So let's go take a look. I'm going to travel over here to the inspections, and from here I want to go up to definitions. Definitions where we create our inspections, and then what I want to do is travel down or navigate down to the specific station I want to create this under. And brake line is where I want to go. I'm going to create a brake line joint residual check. So I want to go over here and hit add. And then the first thing I need to do is put in a name for this inspection. So I'm going to call this brake line residual joint check, and I need to change the type to joint check. The joint I'm going to inspect is already part of this station. So if I hit the search button here, I can select the brake line joint, hit apply, and then that information is pulled in. So that information being the target torque for this joint and the upper and lower spec. So that's going to be part, we're going to see that here in a second when I add this in. So the next thing we need to do is select what method we want to do. So the two options we have are a CPK or an SPC joint. So in this case, I'm going to select an SPC. This is going to be a very frequent test. This is a critical fastener for me. In this case, I want to check it very frequently. So when I do that, it opens up the dialog underneath that we need to fill in. And the first thing we have underneath the method is scheduling by time. So if I go over here and search what all the different schedules I have already created, at the very bottom I have one that's called 3x5 residual checks. So that's an hourly check that I've created. That's every 3 hours I want 5 residual checks of the joint. So I'm going to highlight that one and hit apply. And if for some reason we don't see a schedule that we want, we can always hit the plus and go in and create that. So the number of samples I want, again, is 5. And then I'm going to leave the subgroup at 5, and I'm going to leave the subgroup frequency at 1. So as I travel down through our different options, we have, of course, measuring units, software. I'm going to leave it at newton meters. I'm not going to require a specific transducer in this case. I can potentially change the upper and lower spec limits of this joint information if I needed to. So this joint that was created has a target of 18 newton meters plus or minus of 10%. As you can see, if I hit the arrows right and left, I can see what that is. So if this is a little bit too tight, or if this is not the spec for the residual, but maybe it's the spec regarding the rundown, we can always change this in here. So I'm going to leave it as is. And then the next thing, under advanced parameters, this is very important. The strategy we have here in the software smartly chooses the best method for doing this residual, and what we want you to use is torque over angle for using the ST wrench. You see I do have the option to do a peak and then a loosen retighten, but again, the software is going to choose the best one, which you should leave it at. So underneath our strategy, we have cycle start, and that's something I want you to address in this area. So depending on what smart head we're looking at in our torque range, I want you to put in a value in here that's not too low where we're going to create an issue, a min load error, something like that on the measuring device, but not too high where we're halfway through the tightening strategy. In this case, I'm going to make the assumption that I'm using an 80 newton meter beam for this. So I'm going to put a cycle start in here of 8 newton meters just to be safe. So that's high enough where we're well into the pole before we're starting to look at torque. And then we have ratchet time. We're not touching that. There is no ratcheting in residual checks. And then below that, we have an optional change screw. And this is a value we can enter in here into this inspection, that if we've added enough torque after we've pulled the residual, we've exceeded a limit where we want to repair this joint, you have the option to put that in here now. The wrench is going to let us know, and the inspection is going to let us know. I can safely put in like 28 newton meters or something like that. So, and the rest of the values we see down here below, I'm going to leave them to default. I suggest you do the same until you go out and pull some residual checks. Most likely these are going to be fine for what we need to do. Until we know we have an extremely soft joint or extremely hard joint, do we want to start looking at these breakaway angle thresholds or residual angle threshold values or final torque angle monitoring. So I would recommend leaving them just as it, but I would put in a cycle start Okay, so down below there we have operator guidance, and in operator guidance we have the option to put in a picture. If we hit the plus, if I had a picture for this, I could add in a picture. Maybe the picture has been edited, it's something like that. We have a sequence for the operator to pull in a certain manner, so we can have this picture already pre-set up, and we can select it here. And then down below there we have the option to put in some instructions. So this picture and these instructions, when we launch this inspection from the measuring device, this picture is going to show up and these instructions are be very clear right there. So this is a nice thing to have in the software, is this visual representation. So, and then below that we have a verification code and a verification code description. This is where we can add in potentially a barcode scan or something like that to validate we're in the right station. Again, these are optional things that we can add in. Another thing that's optional is this assignable cause and corrective action, which is below the operator guidance. And as you can see down here, we can assign or we can create assignable cause and corrective actions drop down or pick lists. So these are here to let us know that if something was wrong, like we slipped off the bolt when we're pulling this residual and we got a bad audit, we can identify that. Or if we had a legitimate bad one, we can actually assign a corrective action where we quarantine these parts or something like that, or we did an additional quality check. So again, these are optional, but this is where you'd program these into the software. And the next thing we need to do is hit save, and then we should be back to the definition screen where we started, and then you see that immediately this test is expired. So, and it'll be expired until we put this check, this inspection in a route, and we send it down to our measuring device, and then we go out and actually pull this data or pull this residual checks and bring it back. And then because this is pretty frequently, we're going to see this expiry period where it's 100% red right now. It would actually start at 0 and then it would steadily climb until we got 3/4 of the way. And then again, that's why we do this. And this is a very visual representation in the software that's very nice to see what's due and what's not due with our inspections. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is just put this in a route, and away we go. We're going to pull some torque on this and bring the data back. And then when we want to view that data, we go back here to inspections, go to results, and if we had data for that inspection that we just created, it would show up here under residual check, so we can filter by that specific. This is a residual check of a different station, but you get the idea. This is where we're going to go back and view the information that we've collected in our quality check. So in this video, we covered inspections within QA Supervisor software. If you have any further questions, contact your Atlas Copco rep, and thank you for watching.